Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Alphi Long Form Podcast. I don't know, are we ever going to come up with names for these things?
I think like something like this, just Alphi Podcast, good. But if our creative minds come up with anything better,
I do like Alphi Rants for the shorts.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Right. We got to let our angry inner.
Although we say shorts and then we end up going long. So.
Well, shorts do over time change length. Sometimes, you got the plum hugger 70s, tiny little things. And then we went to this period of time where you wore the Adam Sandler down to the knee or past the knee.
Exactly. Look at the NBA,
All right. Yeah. Look at the NBA.
All right.
All right. So, what are we going to get into today? I got all sorts of stuff to get into myself. My stack of stuff.
Yeah, so you've got a bunch of stuff. I've got a decent amount of stuff. I think there's a lot of stuff that intertwines. So, like,
actually, I'm going to start off with a story. Okay. And I just want this to get kind of put into perspective. Okay. What's going on right now with the tariffs, the trade wars, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So, I have fairly extensive combat time, 3 years approximately. Overseas multiple times. And one time I got sent to a forward operating base that was the single most indirectly attacked forward operating base in the entire theater of war. Now, indirect attacks are mortar, rounds, and rockets. Okay? So this is the single most mortared and rocketed forward operating base in the entire theater of war. And here's what I love about the government. Okay? They received a presidential citation for this. You're not doing your job and getting, you know what? I'm trying to clear up my language on these podcasts. I'm going to try and limit my swearing. Yeah. Okay. And the government sees fit to give you a presidential citation. What is wrong with us? Okay. Now, the first time I got there, the colonel formed up all the soldiers in the middle of the day into a square, a formation, right? I can't remember from my days in the military how many inches are between every soldier, but I'm guessing it's like 36 or something. So you're packed in there. You're the most rocketed and mortared forward operating base, and your idea as of an officer, so you can listen to yourself pontificate for 30 minutes, is to stack everybody into a square in the middle of the forward operating base. Are you insane? And then he stood there and he praised everybody for 30 minutes on what a great job they have done exercising restraint and not fighting back against the enemy. This is the mentality. And this mentality goes from colonels on up in the military, which has turned into a wildly political animal, and they're just politicians, and all politicians in our country. For decades, this is a cancer that is permeated the ruling class a long time ago, and so he would have all these rules, like there was this village Hawija, and when you would drive through Hawija, the soldiers in the gunners' turrets would have to tilt their crew-served weapons pointing upwards and take their hands off of them. I don't want to say this for certain. I'm pretty positive at points he would make them remove the belt of ammo from the weapon. All right. So forget the fact that he's praising them for exercising restraint, that not a single one of them would ever choose to do, that it was being forced on them by the political animal who's trying to, he had the belief that if you just took it on the chin long enough, that for some reason the Muslims would like you. They would realize you're just there to help. This is the insanity of this. Okay? And one night, playing poker, there was a National Guard unit. And I'm going to leave out a lot of the details here so I don't get prosecuted for war crimes. But there was a National Guard unit. They were an MP unit. The officer was a female. And even though she was built like a 10-year-old boy, when you're the only blonde on a forward operating base, yeah, you're the hottest commodity there is, right? And one night, her guys come busting into the tent while we're playing poker, and you can just tell they've just been put through the ringer, covered in blood, sweat, grease, salt soaked through their uniforms. They're filthy, and they are very agitated. And they asked if I was in there, because they didn't know who I was. They just heard of me by name. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, we just got hit. Our captain took an RKG. It's an anti-tank hand-thrown grenade to our door, and it put like 300 pieces of shrapnel through both of her legs. And so I was like, so what do I have to do with this? And they said, well, from what we understand, you don't have to follow any of the rules that all the rest of us are stuck under. So we cleared the tent out of all the other officers, and I talked to them, and basically they wanted revenge, right? Now, I don't really care about revenge or anything, but I do care about doing the right thing that protects U.S. soldiers and accomplishes what the mission, right? Now, this colonel's mission was to appease the terrorists in the hopes of them turning to like you. Thankfully, I didn't fall under him, and his mission was not my mission. So, anyways, what we did is we basically put a con op through to go through this hotbed where it was a marketplace where the negative elements in the area would use the people shopping in the market for cover to attack U.S. soldiers, knowing that, one, these U.S. soldiers had to roll through this area of Hawija, this marketplace, with their hands off their weapons up. They had never retaliated, and they would just take IEDs and grenades and whatnot and never do anything about it. And so the attacks on the U.S. soldiers were just slowly escalating as the enemy became more and more emboldened. Now, so anyways, we went through there, and let's just say by the time we were done, I always joke you could have walked butt naked down the middle of the street with the American flag draped around you while playing Kid Rock's The American Badass, and you would not get touched. All right. Now, what we had to do to accomplish that, though, was very, very aggressive. Okay? Nothing any of us would wake up and choose to do. All right? But when somebody abdicates their job, their responsibility, their duty to you, and they allow the enemy to have their way with you, and it's not just the enemy, right? It's anybody who's on the other side of a negotiating table. When you allow anybody on the other side of it to just have their way with you at will and constantly appease them all in the name of trying to be their friend while they're not reciprocating that friendship, somebody has to come along and be an asshole, right? And do things that are hard and are difficult and are mean to realign people's behavior, to make people behave correctly. And I really, and it's my military background stuff that actually attracted me to Trump, which is funny because I know he evaded the draft or something due to a bone spur or whatever, it was, right? But when you see someone who's willing to do the hard things that no one else has been willing to do, and I know this for a fact because you can literally go back and watch all these politicians from the left. There's a great video of Nancy Pelosi on the floor of the Senate, literally talking exactly like Trump in regards to these tariffs and reciprocal tariffs and the unfair trade practice and all the rest of it. And it's not just been her. They have all talked this, and it's just amazing to me all the different fronts at which they all run their mouth, right? One of the very first things Trump did in his first administration was he moved the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Every single president, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George Bush, all promised Israel they would do this. Why are you promising to do something you have no intention of doing? And if you're promising to do it, why aren't you doing it? And you want to talk about our standing in the international world? You don't think that to promise people something and to never actually fulfill your word doesn't hurt your standing? One of the wisest, most successful men I've ever known in my life actually founded one of the top 3 largest medical manufacturing companies in the world. It was a mentor to me for years. He told me it's better to be trusted than loved. And this is something that I really think people like that colonel and a ton of the brass in the military And all of our politicians really need to figure out really fast, because their idea of being loved is ambiguous. But to be trusted to be a person of your word, trusted to operate fairly, right? Trusted to be accountable to your people, and to have their best interest at heart while allowing other leaders to be accountable to their people and have their people's best interest at heart. This, to me, is the kind of stuff that truly solidifies your standing in a community with your allies, with your foes. And it's just awesome to me to get to watch somebody finally do what all the rest of these MFers have been preaching for decades and have been unwilling to do. And I just feel like I'm getting to watch on a much larger scale what I had to do multiple times overseas, which was come and clean up somebody else's liberalized bullshit policies. So maybe we're starting off the long form of the rant.
That's fair.
But
I think it applies well to this administration, just kind of doing the hard things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're getting to the point to where the propaganda against what Trump is doing in these tariffs is downright criminal. I'm on my way in this morning. I'm listening to MSNBC and CNN, and it's like they had some Rajmataj, some congressperson from somewhere, and he's sitting here just talking about like he's just straight up lying. And there's no pushback. There's no questioning. There's no, this doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? And he's sitting here crying, oh my, this is exactly what none of my constituents wanted is, all these, and it's weird too, the things they pick, right? I've heard them use, we're outside of Macy's and women's dresses are going to go from $100 to $120. And then this other guy was talking about some other weird off the wall, like little thing. And I'm sitting here going, these are your concerns. Like you're picking some really weird. They're picking some really weird things to try and like claim are going to go up in cost, as if they're like somehow super important to the American people, as if somehow their low cost item that they're picking, women's dresses from Macy's, is more important that price stays at $100 than we achieve fair trade, we revitalize the middle class, we bring back manufacturing jobs. I mean, I don't know. It's just amazing to watch the sheer bias, outright lying. And in fact, even it was really funny too, because this one guy, Jose, somebody on CNN, he comes on, he quotes this this business owner was saying that their goods that they're wine. They're talking about wine, and that the wine was going to go 20% per bottle, and he said that it's essentially a VAT tax, or no, he said it was an income tax. The guy from the business was talking about how this increase in tariff is essentially going to turn over not to an income tax. I'm sorry, it was going to essentially equate to a sales tax, increased sales tax of 20% on the wine, and then the CNN guy comes on and he literally quotes me. He goes, "Yeah, the business owner just said that there's going to be essentially a VAT of 20% on the wine," and I'm like, "No, he didn't." I mean, you can try and equate a VAT to an income or to a sales tax if you want, but these are different things, and they have different impacts, and they have different purposes, and they have different outcomes. But like, you're just some journalist hack who runs his mouth for a living, and you don't understand any of this stuff, and you can't even quote the business owner correctly. I don't know.
Yeah, and I assume, like, what is he talking about? 20% because of the EU tariffs?
I think it had to do with that.
Yeah, and then because like part of gets annoying is that I don't think a lot of people give enough credibility to the fact that, like, I think a lot of these tariffs will be pretty quickly negotiated on better terms for us, and so something like that, maybe it does end up being a 0-for-0 tariff agreement, in which case there's no tariff on that wine coming in from Europe.
Well, exactly, and so this is the other thing. Like, to me, this tariff thing should be like anybody listening to it should easily be able to tell there's propaganda going on, right? You can't tell me that it's harmful for us to place tariffs on other countries and it's going to hurt our economy, but it's not hurt their economy to have tariffs higher on us than we've had on them for decades. Why is this not hurting their economy? Why is it okay for them to do it and it's not okay for us to do it? And this goes to this like larger like mentality that I see a lot on the left, and I would love to explore this on a deeper level, right? There's this whole conversation around how the American flag has become a symbol of the right. Okay, and it's like, yeah, why did that happen? If you guys liked America, if you liked the country, if you believed in the Constitution, the way in which it was written, you would fly the American flag. It would not have become a one-sided symbol, but you don't. You view America as a hotbed of racism. You view America as a nation built on the backs of slaves. You view America as an instigator of global problems up until you want the instigator to instigate more global problems. Ukraine, anybody? There is, you preach hatred towards capitalism, which is what America's founded on. You preach hatred towards Christianity, which was the predominant religion that founded America. And so is it any wonder that you don't fly the American flag, and the people who are patriotic, who love America, who believe in the Constitution, who are predominantly Christian, who don't believe that we are the source of the world's ills, who believe that we are a bastion and beacon of capitalism and freedom and democracy, and we know that we rebuilt Japan's government off of our Constitution. We rebuilt Germany's government off of our Constitution, and those are two of the top first world countries in existence because of us rebuilding them based off our Constitution. And it's like, yeah, it's like, and I truly believe this belief permeates everything they do. And so if you think America's a problem, and you think America is corrupt, and you think America is racist and bigoted and homophobic while wearing your shirt, Queers for Palestine, is it any wonder that you constantly think we're going to get our asses handed to us by every other country? You have such a self-hatred, self-loathing view of your nation and its founding principles. You're always on the wrong fucking side. Always. Because you just automatically always take the other people's side of everything. And so in 2018, all we heard about was China was going to wreck us. How dare Trump do this? We can't withstand China. Really? How much more shit do we buy from them? It's 5 times. Yeah. It's 5 times what they buy from us. And this is the thing that nobody on the left is acknowledging, right? Amazon and Walmart get to set the terms. They get to tell the company selling them the goods. They're the buyer. They're the one in a position of power. They're the one in control. Well, so's America. We buy 5 times the amount of shit from China that they do from us. You think they can stop letting us buy that from them? What would happen to the Chinese economy if we stopped buying it? Now, I'll tell you, this is why they're bucking up, okay? Because if we start trying to build our own economy, if we start trying to build our own manufacturing, our own middle class, we will buy less shit from them. So they know in the long run what Trump is doing is going to shift and balance these tables, and they can't afford to have that happen, or they don't think they can. In reality, they can, because there's a much bigger problem coming, and that's China is 100 million people short to maintain their economy. And who in their right mind wants to be reliant on a country that is a decade to a decade and a half away from not being able to sustain the manufacturing needs that we have? It's just one more issue that's got to get solved here. And the only way to do it, really, is to balance this trade thing out, in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, like a country like China, I think we have almost a $300 billion trade deficit yearly at this point.
Exactly.
And it's just growing wider and wider as time goes on.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about all the leftists talking about Trump's calculations for determining the tariffs and how he based it off of the trade deficit? And they all think this is totally insane and stupid and irrational. And in fact, one lady asked somebody from the administration, "Did you guys have? Oh, this is a great. Okay, have you seen the stuff about penguins?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know where this? Do you know where this originates from? I just learned this last night or this morning. Okay, so I'm out of the protest. I went to the protest with a friend of mine
over the weekend.
Yeah, over the weekend. Okay, there's a great picture. You need to post a picture of me. Yeah. I'm holding a sign calling for the impeachment of Trump, and just so y'all know, my caveat here is I would never hold a sign saying I'm pro-abortion. I would never hold a sign saying I'm pro-death penalty. All right. But boy, oh boy, do I love it every time the Democrats impeach Trump. So I have no problem holding a sign calling for the impeachment of Trump because it just keeps benefiting us. Yeah. Okay, so do it 10 more times for all I care, right? I know that once the midterms come and one of the two chambers flips, whether it's the Senate or the House, they're going right back to impeaching Trump, and it's like, hallelujah, yes. Like, do it every month. Just come up with another, just keep doing the same shit that's lost you everything. Just keep doing it, right? Put your approval ratings at 27%. Keep doing it, right? So that's why I'm holding a sign that his girlfriend made that calls for the impeachment of Trump. It's awesome. But there was these signs there about the penguins, and I couldn't figure out what's there. I stand with the penguins. And one of my friends on social media from the military, she's very far left, and she posts something about I stand with penguins. All right, so then I watched this clip where this lady asked somebody from the White House administration if they had AI craft the tariff policy. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, why would you have tariffs on, there's this group of islands.
Yeah, well, there's nobody living on.
Nobody lives, well, not a lot of people live, but they're islands and they're countries. And they're the McDonald Islands, and then there's another another name. And these islands are closely grouped together, right? So why would the Trump administration have put tariffs on those islands when currently nothing's manufactured there?
I would assume there's always some kind of legal loopholes and tax codes and whatnot.
This is what we do for a living, right? You have to understand, like there's people creating hurdles, and there's people end-arounding the hurdles, trying to figure out how to navigate a way through them, right? And this is a tale as old as time, right? So Apple, one of the things, so Apple is investing in the United States, but at the same time, they're also looking to route shit through India. All right. So if Trump, and so everybody's like, well, why doesn't Trump do these one at a time? All right. Now, don't get me wrong. There's an argument to be made there that's not illogical. All right. The blanket mass attack creates a lot of chaos. It creates a lot of uncertainty. The problem is, and I think it's smart that he's going at it the way that he's going at it, even though it does create that chaos and uncertainty, because he doesn't have time. Yeah. He's got 2 years max before the Democrats start running impeachment trials again, right? Because we know that's their only thing to do. And it's their favorite thing to do with Trump. And they'll come up with 10 more reasons to impeach him. So, if he were to exclude places, China will use those tax havens and those countries to route products through them to come into America. And it's the same thing they did with South America with the border. They started moving goods and services to Mexico and then routing them up into here to avoid tariffs that were on
those countries,
on China.
Yeah.
So you cannot exclude anywhere. Like this is a war for our survival, and you have to think 10 steps ahead. You got to, and luckily, I think Trump is perfectly the person to do this, because this mofo's been running loopholes his whole life, right? He stood on stage when Hillary Clinton accused him of not paying taxes. He said, yeah, you're darn right I don't. I use all the same shit you put into the tax code and all your friends have been using for decades. And if you don't want me to do it, then change the tax code, but you're never gonna because you're doing all the same shit.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's hardly a loophole when you're just following the law.
Well, exactly. It's not a loophole. It's the laws the way they've been written. Right? And that's what I love. There's nothing to be done tax code-wise creatively or loopholes. It's called the law. It's written, and it's there in Title 26 for a reason. All right? So it's the same thing with this tariff thing. You've got a guy who is very astute at figuring out how to navigate complexities, and he's just projecting on what would they do. What would I do? If somebody did this to me, what would I do? Oh, you know what I would do? I would go spin something up on the island of McDonald's, and I would ship parts, ship it there. Maybe it's 90% complete. Maybe it's 80% complete. Whatever the rules are, because somebody's going to make rules. And then I'm going to do the final step of assembly, and I'm going to ship it in, and now I just avoided your tariff. So this blanket situation is the way to prevent a lot of those loopholes. And you're never going to be able to prevent them all. But you got to make it difficult enough that they would rather come to the negotiating table and negotiate the tariff away versus try and get through your loopholes.
And if those islands are truly just penguins and no business being done or anything, then who the hell cares if there's a tariff on them?
Well, exactly. What do you care? Why are you mad about it? Like, it's just weird to me. It's like, did it cost us a lot of money to put a tariff on it? No, it didn't cost us probably anything.
No. Because I assume those islands, they probably just put that base 10% tariff on. In which case, it really didn't take any effort or time or money to do that. So
yeah, yep. All right.
But, I did think the way they calculated tariffs is interesting, especially when you see every news outlet they post the equation that the White House used.
Yeah.
And the equation, when you first look at it, it looks like really mathematical and complicated, but I think it just ends up being roughly they take the the dollar value of imports, dollar value of exports.
That's it.
Yeah, it's I guess then
they divide them by each other.
Yeah,
or some shit.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what percent of total trade is what we're importing, whatever. And so it really is quite simple.
And I heard this quote this morning. Trump said he just considers that the trade deficit to be like a P&L, and it's not like a P&L. Yeah, he said he considers it to be like way to go. Is that your point? It's is this your intelligence level? What are you doing on television? It's no shit, it's not a P&L. He didn't say it was a P&L. He said he's just looking at the difference between imports and exports, right? Now, there's some things you can't do about it. Supposedly there are things that come from other countries that we can't get. But that doesn't mean that there's not stuff that we produce that they can't receive. So, and I love that. They're like Madagascar and vanilla. It's again, where do they come up with these examples? You can't find a better example than some little tiny island off the coast of Africa and vanilla. You can't find something a little more important. Yeah. It's just what? I don't know, man. I just feel like SNL's writers are producing most news in regards to the tariffs these days. Just a bunch of very uninformed, very elementary thinking, very uneducated, ignorant, knowing nothing about global economies, nothing about economics, nothing about trade, nothing about any of this. Writing up these stories for these talking heads to regurgitate. I mean, it's just I'm so far you've scared me into thinking my vanilla's going to go up, buying dresses for my girlfriend at Macy's is going to go up, and my cheap wine is going to go up. Shit, whatever will I do?
Yeah. And, it's a lot of these countries are already, looking to negotiate. And I think another thing that people don't really consider when talking about reciprocal tariffs is some of these other unfair trade practices. So I think China in particular is a good example. So it's stuff if you're going online and you look at DHgate or something like that, where you get really cheap Chinese products.
Yep.
But you're buying pretty darn accurate like Louis Vuitton bags, Dior bags, stuff like that.
Knockoffs or something?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're replicas essentially.
Knockoffs.
Yeah,
we used to call those knockoffs. Now they're called replicas.
Well, they're pretty good. That's why I say replica.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like
they hardly even seem like a knockoff.
Yeah, it's like a trainee. You can tell it's still a guy versus one where you're like, wow, she's hot.
Yeah, exactly. So
and then she talks like this, and you're like,
yeah, scary. But
so she's a replica. The other one's a knockoff.
So all this stuff they're getting on DHgate, it's coming from China.
Yeah,
and it's illegal to be stealing.
Yeah,
these brands.
yes, you're committing fraud. You're committing a crime, and we're letting you do it.
Yeah, so that's what they mean by like intellectual property theft is that they can't be in copyright. All this, and China is a pretty guilty country, and it's kind of hard to quantify.
And they're doing it with software. They're doing it with artificial intelligence. They're doing it with microchips. They're doing it with
everything. Yeah, any kind of patents stuff.
And then they're doing it way beyond that too. EU last year opened up an investigation into BYD because BYD is China's number one electric car manufacturer, and they're really not. They're not solely electric cars, but they're trying to compete on that level. And they're claiming they've produced an electric car for $15,000. Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I know that if you can't even buy the raw materials to manufacture a vehicle for $15,000, you didn't refine the material and manufacture a car and sell it for a profit at $15,000. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And the EU opened up an investigation into them specifically because you know what's happening. The Chinese government is subsidizing in order to allow them to illegally invade our car markets. Like, and no offense, it's the same thing the EU's been doing to us with their 10% tariff for the last decades, allowing their car companies to illegally invade our car markets while preventing us from being able to sell there. And there's lots of different ways to do it, right? What I don't have to do it with just tariffs, right? What's the number one vehicle sold in America?
In America?
Yep. Number one vehicle sold in America has been for decades. I think 40 years. Nothing comes close.
Is it a Japanese car or what?
Nope. It's the Ford F-150.
That makes sense, yeah. That's not surprising, actually.
Yep. Now, do you think there's other things I can do to make it impossible to sell a Ford F-150 in your country? Emissions, weight, size, all that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this stuff goes way beyond tariffs and VAT taxes. There's numerous regulatory burdens you can put into place that prevent us from being able to sell our goods and services in your nation. So that's why Trump went to the equation he did. Because if he just tried to go based off tariffs, it wouldn't take any of the other things into account. But by looking straight at trade deficit, it prevents you from being able to lower your tariff and increase your regulation, essentially keeping the status quo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And yeah,
I mean, if I'm trying to sell you a leather jacket and I reduce the tariff on leather good trade to 0, but then I know that you use tannin in order to, or whatever they use, a certain chemical in order to tan leather in America. And I say, I'm going to reduce the tariff to 0, but we're not allowing anything with this chemical on it into our country. What's the difference?
Yeah, no difference at all.
There is no one. You just evaded the tariff while still keeping me from being able to compete in your country. But if I put these tariffs on based on trade deficits, I don't give a shit what regulations you put on it. Either the trade deficit gets balanced or my tariffs stay on you.
Or like I would trust, I trust Trump pretty well to negotiate and basically use the threat of like future tariffs if he feels that they're taking advantage of us.
Yeah.
If we were to take off these tariffs.
Yeah, I'm just saying like how in the world could you possibly track and manage every single little thing a country can do to get one over on you?
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. So the easiest solution is go to the top. Look at what the net result is. The net result is a trade imbalance. That's the only thing that matters. I don't care if you don't like GMO corn. I don't care if you don't like certain food dyes. I don't care if you don't like certain chemicals in the manufacturing process. I don't care if you don't like certain I don't care about any of that. There's a trade imbalance. Fix it, or I'm going to fix it. Right? And you can fix it any way you want it. You can lower your tariffs. You can strip away your regulations. Whatever it is that needs to be done to balance the trade agreement. And that, I think that's why Trump based his calculation the way that he did. Just my 2 cents.
We got a long ways to go before we ever balance the trade deficits, and I don't know if we ever fully will, because 2024 we had over a $1.2 trillion deficit on goods. Yeah. We did have a surplus on services provided.
Look. So here's
but actual manufacturing, like physical goods, it's over 1.2 trillion.
Yeah. Look. So here's another perspective. Right. We're 25% of the global GDP. 25%. Yeah. We're not 100. We're not 50. We're 25%. You know it's been this way since like World War I? Our percentage of GDP has not. It's fluctuated throughout there. At one point, it got as high as 40. But we're 25%. So if we're 25% of the GDP, should there be a multi-trillion-dollar trade deficit? Should you not, we should only be 25%, help me think this one through for me, right?
Okay.
Because it's just popped in my head and I haven't formulated it all right now, right? But if there's 4 of us, right? Or let's say there's 10 of us, right? And I have the bulk of the income, and I'm buying 25% of the total amount of money going on. So there's 10 of us, there's $100 in the pot, and I'm spending $25, right?
Yeah.
What would should my trade deficit look like? Should it be lopsided? I don't think it should be lopsided. I think it should be more going out than coming in, because there's a 75% larger bucket outside of me that should be buying so for every quarter I'm spending, there should be 75% of my goods and services going out the door to you. There should be no trade deficit.
Yeah.
It should be in our favor.
You think it would at least be a little bit more in our favor, but I think overall it's just the reason, the shift and towards globalism is really what's causing this deficit to go
globalism
and
and free trade.
Because globalism is one of those things that sounds kind of like a utopia when you just talk about it. Talk about how every country does their own thing and they excel at what they do. They're making good products at cheap prices. They're send them in. We get cheaper imports, and so that sounds good on paper, but until something bad happens, I don't know what that would be, war, something like that, where we have to be more self-sufficient. And if we really don't have much manufacturing power, it gets a little trickier.
Yeah, you think? Yeah.
And so that's really the longer-term view.
Yeah, did we talk on one of these podcasts yet about the video from Jib Jab that I showed you the other day, the big box store?
No.
We should. I don't know if we can include that video. Maybe we can include a link out to it.
I'll definitely put a link.
All right. 17 years ago, Jib Jab made a video about all the Americans loving to go to the big box store, racking up all their credit card debt, buying a bunch of cheap shit from China, and then how they end up having to work there, sweeping the aisles and scrubbing the toilets when they're older. It is one of the best videos ever. This stuff was acknowledged as common knowledge. It's kind of like genders. It was common knowledge. There's XX and XY. Okay. This wasn't rocket science. It was common knowledge that if a man punches a woman in the face, she's going to get hurt more than if she punches him in the face. This was common knowledge. And somehow half of the country's gone right out the freaking deep end. So, anyways, I'm good on tariffs. I got if you are.
Yeah, I guess.
Or do you want to go more into it? You want to go more into technical stuff?
Well, I think a lot of this we already kind of talk about weekly on other podcasts, like stuff like the way the market's reacting to it.
Well, I do want. Oh yeah, should we get into? Yeah, let's cover that while we're.
I feel like we usually talk about, but it's never a bad thing to keep updating though.
Yeah,
something that's moving a lot, and the last few days, have been what you would call a bloodbath. I'm not quite sure where it's at today. I think today we're pretty even, maybe up. We're up a decent amount today, but we'll see. Yesterday we were up big in the morning, and then we were down by the end of the day.
Yeah, we were.
So you really never know. But I think the biggest thing is that you hear all these different experts saying all these different predictions one way or the other, and everybody's wrong. And just to what degree they're wrong, and no one truly knows what's going to happen. Like by the end of the year, for all we know, we could be S&P 500 could be 4,500 or it could be 7,000.
Right.
And I'm sure there's people on both sides of that. People probably think the S&P is going to end up below 4,000 by the end of the year, and they're probably wrong.
What do you think about all the recession talk? I've seen an article that say we're already in a recession.
Yeah, so that
reminds me of COVID. You had to test me to tell me you're in a pandemic. You gotta advertise that we're in a pandemic. I can't tell we're in one.
Yeah,
you got to tell me we are unknowingly in a recession.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I found interesting, because like the official definition of a recession is like kind of a gray area.
Yes,
and so you'll hear a lot about like the high level version of a recession is 2 quarters straight of like negative GDP.
Yes,
growth.
Correct. 2 quarters of negative GDP growth,
and that's like kind of just like a generalization. There's a lot more that goes into it, like income, employment, all this and that, a lot of different variables. And so probably not in a recession now. That is something I looked up though. So I really like looking at betting markets. And so I did that a lot during the 2024 campaign or, election cycle. I think it's pretty cool. And so, I looked it up on Polymarket, what the chances of a recession are in 2025. And they are, right now, it is more likely than not in the betting odds. So right now it's 62% chance that the U.S. will see a recession in 2025. So it'll be interesting to see. I also think at the same time, though, that a word like recession is just a word. Like if I think it's the National Bureau of Economic Research is who declares whether or not we're in a recession or not.
Yeah.
So whatever day that if they do announce it, whatever day they announce it, nothing really actually changes other than the fact that they say that we're in a recession.
Yes.
And so I think, but it's like stupid stuff like that if they were to announce that we're in a recession, the stock market would go down.
Yeah, it would.
Even though nothing changed other than, we just
Excellent
said
point.
We're in a recession.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel a lot about these tariffs is that there's a lot of reaction to stuff that really isn't as big of a game changer as like the market would have you think.
Yeah.
And then also with that Liberation Day, I mean, I personally am young, so I don't really care which way the markets move one way or the other. But like a lot of these tariffs that Trump's putting out, that baseline 10%, a lot of these reciprocal tariffs, like aren't really anything different than what he was running on all along. And so I guess, Wall Street was just hoping that, was just betting on him not putting these tariffs in. But like in my mind, like there was never a question of whether or not he's going to put it in, the tariffs.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like how long or what the negotiation process looks like. That's more uncertain to me. But the fact that they put the tariffs in place was not a surprise at all.
Yeah, and I figured some tariffs to some extent or whatever was going to go on. I just didn't know like how quickly countries would back down. Like I find it funny that Canada is suing, I don't know if they call it suing, but they've taken us to the World Trade Organization and filed some complaint against us. China's trying to buck up, and it's like, again, we're the biggest buyer on the planet.
Yeah, we had over $3 trillion of imports last year.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, biggest buyer on the planet, that's the biggest buyer by hundreds of billions of dollars. And so, Like, if you're ever going to have negotiating power, now would be the time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well, actually, the time would have been when we were 40% of the global GDP.
Yeah, probably when we were like even more powerful. But I think now is also a good time. And talking about China, like the retaliation, like I know today they had bumped up their tariff rate on the U.S. I think up to 84%, and right now we have 104%. And I just don't see how that would be a battle that China would win. I don't see any way.
No, there's no way possible for them to win.
Yeah, so
there's no way possible for any country to beat us.
Yeah. And so I think
they're gnats.
China thing is interesting. I'll be curious to see how that plays out. It's like stuff like that is more unpredictable. Like the tariffs in the first place weren't, but like, the reaction is more unpredictable. And so I'll be interested to see how this China thing plays out or how long it takes to play out.
Yeah.
Because I don't see China winning. I know I saw a clip of Kevin O'Leary. I think he was on CNN, but he was like advocating for 400% tariff.
Yes.
So we're already at 104%. Why not just 4x that and get up to 400? Because the number really doesn't matter at this point. Once you start going above like 10%, like
no, the minute you stop China from being able to import into America, it's over for them.
Yeah.
It is absolutely over for. What are they going to do? Sell their shit to India?
Yeah, because it's a
India where 90% of all human waste being shit into human water supplies is occurring. You think they're gonna take up the slack?
No.
You think they're gonna start buying everything we used to buy? Oh, how about the whole continent of Africa?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't even match up.
It's like that scene in the movie Euro Trip when he tips a nickel, and the guy turns around and slaps his boss and goes, "I'm going to fulfill my life's gold dream. I'm going to go open my own hotel with the nickel." Right? Like you have like the whole continent of Africa. Yeah, I mean, geez, they're not going to start buying all that shit we buy. India is not capable of doing it. Russia, you think Russia's gonna? I just named it like between two countries and a continent.
Yeah.
South America, anybody?
Definitely not. Like, so I got.
I mean, where are they going to go?
So, like in 2024, our trade deficit with China, like I said, was just under $300 billion, so $295 billion. We imported a total of $439 billion. And so, if, for example, like China is one of the countries that really retaliates and essentially cuts off trade altogether, the U.S. will be fine, but I see no way that China will.
You know the entire GDP of the entire continent of Africa doesn't even hit our trade deficit, or not trade deficit, but
the import with China.
Yeah, how much was it? You said
like 400 and so we imported $439 billion in 2024.
Okay, what did you say? I think was it our GDP or something that was $3 trillion?
Oh, the total imports. Or the total imports was a little over $3 trillion.
Yes, the entire GDP of the entire continent, Africa,
3.3 trillion.
Yes, that's 500 billion.
500 billion
more.
Yeah,
500 billion more than the entire continent Africa produces.
Yeah,
not a country, a continent.
That's their GDP.
Yeah, 2.84 trillion is the entire continent of Africa's GDP.
Wow.
3.8 trillion is India.
And that's like well over 1 billion people.
Well over 1 billion. Like, why for 50 years can we not act like what we are? Right? These people, everybody wants to talk about how the whole world hates us all the time. No, they really don't. See, this is one of the biggest scams that's been perpetrated on you. All right? So, one of the neatest experiences I had in the military is you learn something that I don't think people realize. We're the only military on the planet that's diverse. How many whites, blacks, and Hispanics are in the Chinese military?
I'm guessing not many. I'm guessing that's a whole lot of Chinese people.
Right?
Yeah.
How many whites and Hispanics and Asians are in any African military?
Definitely not a lot.
Not a lot.
If any. I don't know. Definitely not many. Because like I'm pretty much like all my military buddies are non-white here. So.
Yeah. No, we are the most diversified military on earth.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that the people of the countries we're in, right? You're always going to have. I always tell people that these foreign countries that we're at war with or that our military operates in, there's always like the same exact groups at a certain level, right? You have the bulk of the people who don't care one way or the other. They just want to go to work and take care of their families. That's the bulk of every population. Then you have a small subset that are what I call the patriots. And they're in every country. And they don't care what you're doing there. You're not from there. You shouldn't be there. They don't want you there. And I think that makes perfect sense because I don't care what we were, just if any foreign country sent troops in to like during the Summer of Love where the BLM movement murdered 19 people and torched all the cities across America, if any country had come in and established some kind of peacekeeping force, there'd be a whole lot of redneck patriots attacking that force just on the sheer fact that you're not from here, we don't want you here, right? It doesn't matter how good their intentions are. So every country has that portion of the population as well.
Yep.
Then you also have a bigger portion that's smaller than the majority, but bigger than the patriots, is the people who stand to benefit financially. They're the people who are connected to the inflow of money based off war. And they want to keep you there because they want to keep that pipeline going. And I can't remember what my point was, is why I was bringing that up.
We're talking about diversity of the military.
Oh, yeah. And so here's what was really neat. Here's the other thing that's really weird about foreign countries. There's a joke about law enforcement in Mexico as an entrepreneurial gig. This is true in almost all countries. There's actually a corruption scale. And I think Chad is the most corrupt country on the planet, according to this corruption scale. But in most countries, going into law enforcement or the military is specifically done. It's not done out of sacrifice for your nation. It's not done out of trying to better your community. It's done because it lawfully gives you the ability to wield a weapon over your fellow citizens. That's why they do it. They are wildly abusive. They are wildly corrupt on every level. They steal in the form of bribery, right? You would watch people come in and get paid, and they pick up their cash. They walk out the back door. Somebody's waiting for them. They have to peel off a portion of it to them. They walk to the corner of the building. They meet somebody else. They have to peel off a portion of it. They turn left. They walk to the front corner of the building. They have to peel off a portion of their money, and then they get to leave. You would see Iraqi army checkpoints on like freeway overpasses, and they stop every vehicle, and they take money from every vehicle passing that checkpoint. The whole point in carrying a weapon is to steal money from your fellow citizens. Do you think you can trust those people?
Definitely not.
No. You can't trust your own citizenry. Right? But guess who they could trust? Guess who never fleeced them for a bribe?
Us.
Yeah. They trusted us more than they trusted their own people in uniform. By a mile. Right? So I just think it's just really interesting to me, like this negative viewpoint. I'm kind of back on this topic again somehow, that people have about us. And yet the bulk of the world doesn't. They love us. They appreciate us. They trust us. And they trust us more than they trust their own people.
Yeah, and I'd be curious too. I would assume that the U.S. would rank quite highly in like charitable donations across the world,
like number one,
like personal, like outside of like obviously government, but like personal.
No,
donations.
No. American citizens are the number one source of charitable contributions and philanthropic work the world over. No one comes close.
Yeah, so I think that gives us a lot of goodwill across the world, especially in those developing nations that aren't very rich.
Yeah. So I got another topic for you. one of the complaints I hear is Trump attacking the legitimacy of the courts. And we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. But when I was listening to it, it made me think about something, right? So I always use this example of Mitt Romney and his socialized health care plan that he instituted in Massachusetts. And he got a lot of flack from people on the right when he was trying to get the nomination to run for presidency because he had done that. And socialized health care is generally something associated with liberals and Democrats.
Yep.
And even people on the right couldn't understand why it was okay for him to have done that. All right? Why it would be okay for him to do it as the governor of a state and not okay for him to do it as the president of the country.
I would assume maybe it's just his constituents. Like Massachusetts is a pretty liberal state, so.
Well, it is a liberal state. But more importantly, it has to do with the size of the government he was managing.
Yeah.
The larger the government, the less power it's supposed to have. And this is a concept that is completely inversed when you're on the left or you're a Democrat. Yeah. Democrats view the solution to all problems as federal government. Now, it's logical and intelligent, right? Because the more I can consolidate power at a single point, the easier it is for me to implement that and to wield that power across the entire nation, right? So if I wanted, I'm going to use, and one of the best uses of federal power that I've seen was Brown versus the Board of Education and desegregation, right? So you had this whole nation of states, and in some of them they're more racist than others, and in some of them they were not integrating the school system, and you were having communities of color get harmed by not having access to the same quality of education. And this was true even within healthcare. All right. And so by being able to wield the power of the federal government, they were able to exercise control over all the states and solve this problem. All right. So it's not that it's completely without merit, right? It's just that that's not supposed to be a power that the federal government can wield. And so this same issue is occurring within the court system, right? Who was the judge that stopped that issued the order trying to turn the planes around?
Oh man, let's look it up.
Yeah, I'm doing that real quick.
Because there's been so many judges all across the country bringing shit up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. CNN. Now this guy wants to hold Trump officials in contempt of violating court's orders. All right. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg.
Yep.
Okay. He's a U.S. District Judge. All right. Now, what area of authority do you think like he should be capable of issuing an order? Like you're issuing an order in direct violation of the executive branch of the government. Okay? So he's a U.S. District Judge for the District of Columbia, appointed by President Barack Obama in 2011. Okay? So how does one guy, non-elected, have the ability to control the entire federal government? You want to talk about tyranny? That's the definition of tyranny.
Yeah. It is pretty crazy that individual judges can basically maybe not altogether stop the administration, but like halt them to a point where you're slowing things down so much that, like you said, you only got a 2-year timeline before the midterms.
Yep.
And then depending on how those midterms go, the second half of his presidency might be quite a bit harder to accomplish.
Significantly.
And so that's kind of the whole game they're playing. Is
absolutely.
Everything that he does, they can, challenge it. And, even if he does ultimately win, it's just slowing him down.
It just slows everything down, right? And so and let's go even higher, right? So I don't know by what metric you want to claim a president is taking illegal action. A lot of people on the left will use the fact that Trump is being held up by the courts to prove that what he's doing is illegal. Now, if you would like to make that your benchmark, okay, then you would have to acknowledge that the person who is most overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court would be the one attempting to do the most illegal shit.
Yeah.
And who was that? Which president holds the record for being overturned the highest number of times by the U.S. Supreme Court?
Was it Abraham Lincoln? Is that the one we're talking about here?
Nope. It was His Holiness, President Barack Obama.
Mr. Obama.
Not only did he assassinate a U.S.-born citizen who was a minor with no court trial, he was the single most overturned president in American history by the U.S. Supreme Court, which meant, according to the liberal leftist logic, and Google that, fact check me on it.
Yeah, I'm going to double check.
Okay. That he tried to do the most amount of illegal shit. So is that really the truth? Or is the truth that we're supposed to have three, anybody heard this term before? Co-equal branches of government. If the Supreme Court gets to overrule Congress, Senate, and the president, and nothing can be done about it, do we have three co-equal branches of government?
Nope.
No, we don't. We have a ruling class of, is it nine judges appointed by presidents for life that actually rule America. Is that democracy you think you want to live under? So by what mechanism do we have in order to push back, right? Because really, right, if I'm in a three-way relationship, right, everybody has to kind of negotiate and jockey for power and control. And you want to do it in a healthy way. It's not unhealthy to do that. Like you should each be fighting for your power, right? The Congress and Senate should be fighting for legislative power. And they have differences too there, right? So Congress is going to fight for power of the purse, blah, 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 whatever. The president should be fighting for his executive power. The judicial branch should be fighting for the judicial power. And that fight between the three of them, the friction that's created, is healthy. It keeps them all in check. Did you find anything that said I was wrong?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right way to search that up, but
here, I'll find it for you right here.
I'm utilizing Grok, and Grok is
just go to Google.
So what exactly are you searching?
Just which president has been overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court the highest number of times? We need Abby up here to search stuff.
So this political stack exchange, this is from 2017. I'm just reading this. President Barack Obama had the worst record. That's just a forum. I'm not going to.
No, you can't quote it, but I guarantee you can find it. We can find it later because I've seen it numerous times.
This Cato Institute also has, this might be more legitimate. Let's see. So
there you go. Cato Institute. Obama's lost the Supreme Court more than any modern president.
Yeah, because as of this article was July 6, 2016, so he would have still been president, but it looked like his record was 79-96.
He had a 48%. Obama's Justice Department is. It says this term, however, confirmed a very real phenomenon. The Obama administration, by historical standards, has done exceedingly poorly before the Supreme Court. While this conclusion may seem counterintuitive given the term's liberal victories on abortion and affirmative action, as previous terms' rulings upholding Obamacare, the statistics are staggering. This past term, the federal government won 13 cases and lost 14. Such mediocrity may seem surprising, but the 48% win rate is actually the Obama Justice Department's third best result. The administration's best term was 2013 to 2014 when it went 11-9, while its worst record of 3-9 came in the abbreviated 2008 to 2009 term. Overall, the administration has managed a record of 79.96, a win rate of just above 45%. The audit doesn't look too good when compared to the record of his predecessors. George W. Bush achieved a record of 89.59, 60%. And that's if you fold in all the 2000 to 2001, including cases argued when Bill Clinton was president, in what was an unusually bad term for the government, roughly 35%. Clinton, in turn, had an overall record of 148.87 at 63%. Again, including all of 92 to 93, George H.W. Bush went 91 to 39, 70%. So look, I'm not saying this makes Obama a bad president. I think it makes Obama a good president. I think if you're the president of the United States, you should be fighting for your power as the executive.
And that's what the Supreme Court is there for. Like if they disagree, they disagree, and then you just take the loss there and you move on.
Yeah, and I don't even agree with that. I just don't know what the alternative is.
Well, there is. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of hard.
I think it's crazy that we allow them to be the final arbiter.
Yeah, in every single case.
Every single case. Like, we're ruled by 9 people.
Yeah, and there's no way to ever get a group of humans to actually rule in a nonpartisan way.
Exactly.
One way or the other. Because then you just have, like, I mean, as much as they try to follow...
No, but they don't. They
law,
don't.
Like,
You have,
there's still like underlying beliefs.
You're very divided. You have one group who's conservative that believes in trying to interpret the Constitution as it's written. And then you have another group, the liberals, who don't believe in the Constitution at all. And it's completely up for their interpretation and however they can...
Like a living constitution.
Well, yeah.
They adapt to the
Yeah,
time.
let me translate that. Living means fuck it, chuck it out the window and do whatever I want.
It's kind of like some people who have like a living Bible.
Yeah.
Where they
just change it.
They take their own interpretation. The Bible says one thing. They're like, well, culture is different today.
See this story where there's this guy, he's battered on the road, and Jesus comes upon him, and the man from Nazareth comes upon him and picks him up and takes care of him. Well, let me translate that to the man from Nazareth formed a mob, used the mob to steal a bunch of shit from whoever in town had more than everyone else, and then used that guy's money after they beat him and stole it all from him to take care of the guy and instituted a rule of law to provide free health care to everybody. That's what Jesus would do.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
You're not Christian if you don't vote for a mob to steal somebody's shit.
Yeah, dude. It gets anything to do with the Bible and trying to bring it to today's terms gets real messy real quick.
Real quick. All right. Anyways, so all I'm saying with the judge thing, right, is that you cannot allow, okay. So then they also talked about how the lady on CNN this morning was talking about how these cases are going to the shadow docket. I mean, it's like, what is this? The mirror where Zod and his 2 minions went? The shadow realm, right? It's the shadow docket. And these decisions are being made with no arguments and no oversight. Well, I mean, who's the oversight on the Supreme Court? We've already established there isn't any.
That's kind of the whole point of the Supreme Court.
And no one's having to sign their name to it. Well, these aren't decisions. I mean, they're kind of decisions, but they're not rulings that are like, they're saying, hey, district court person in Columbia who just made a rule that the Trump administration can't function as an executive branch without you telling them what they can and can't do. Hey, we're going to put a stay to that. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right? They're trying to so this is actually a really positive thing about the Supreme Court, right? You're watching a president, just like Obama did, try and exercise the executive branch power. And you have a bunch of one-offs trying to stop him. And all that's happening on this shadow docket is the U.S. Supreme Court is saying, nope, shut up. They're going to get to continue to do what they're doing. They're the executive branch of the government. You don't have control of the executive branch of the government. And if there's legitimate cases here, they're going to work through the process. But in the meantime, the executive branch gets to function as the executive branch. That's not a bad compromise in regards to not letting the Supreme Court, the judicial system, control the government.
Yeah, I'd say that's really how it should be intended to function.
Yeah.
Because, you can't always just be slowing down the executive branch all along.
No.
Because at the end of the day, he is like the duly elected leader of the country.
Yep.
And it's pretty unfortunate if he can't even do the things that he ran on without being held up so much to the point where like they might never get implemented.
Exactly. All right, what else do I want to talk about here today? We got to go to my, I love to steal his term. I hope I don't get sued for it. My stack of stuff. He was one of my heroes growing up. I decided I'm referring to Aiden, who's behind the scenes, as Bo Snerdley. So some people get that or not. Oh, okay. Here's something I wanted to go over. There's an article out today, George Stephanopoulos. How do you say that guy's name?
Stephanopoulos.
And he interviewed Joe Biden after the debate.
Yeah, I remember that.
Did you see what he said about it?
Are you talking about what he said way back when he thought Joe Biden should drop out? Or
well, this was printed 6 hours ago. George Stephanopoulos. What's that Sesame Street character? Hufflepuff?
I related to him.
Heartbreaking up close during crucial post-debate interview. ABC News anchor's private assessment of former president's concerning performance detailed in a book called Uncharted. Chris Whipple's new book, Uncharted, How Trump Beat Biden, Harris, and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History.
It was wild.
Yeah, it was wild because one side chose to make it that way.
Yeah.
One side chose to lie their faces off every single day for years. Gaslight the American people. Swear up and down that Joe Biden is at the top of his mental acuity game. He's the most articulate, intelligent man in the room. That guy's never been the most intelligent man in any room.
Yeah.
Ever, even when he had all of his brain cells functioning.
Yeah, I think they definitely shot themselves in the foot because it wasn't really a bold prediction to assume that Biden was going to drop out. He had Vivek at the Republican primary debates calling out the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And that was I think that was maybe I don't know for sure. It was over 14 months or something before the election, maybe even further before. And it's bad when it's a year and a half before the election and you already have people on national television at the other side's debates telling you when are you going to drop out? I don't know. It's pretty bad. And then sure enough, he does drop out, but he waits until, what was it? Just 3.5 months away from the election. It's 100 days.
3.5 months away from the election. Drops out. There's no primary. You pick the person who couldn't get 1% of your primary vote.
Yeah.
Who is also equally as dumb. Nobody can listen to that woman and think she's going to run the country. Now, it's okay because you already knew she and Joe Biden weren't already running the country, right? So you could elect her knowing there's some shadow government that's actually running the country, and you could like that shadow government's policies and actions and know that you're just electing the shadow government. If that's what you want to do, have at it. So here's what cracks me up. Here's this article. The White House accepted an interview with the This Week host on July 5th. You want to hear the reasoning?
What's the reasoning?
To reassure the public about the president's candidacy. They did the interview with George Stephanopoulos to reassure the public about Joe Biden.
Oh, that was the
go
purpose?
for you. That was their purpose. So imagine the narcissism, right? And so honestly, seriously, just think about this for 1 second. Follow me on this, right? I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. But there's no way in hell you didn't know he was brain dead. No way. Yeah. There's no way you didn't know this. There's no way you didn't know it.
Well, definitely not.
So the only reason you could be bringing George Stephanopoulos in for to interview this guy is believing that they're going to edit and control and create propaganda to make it appear as if Joe Biden was coherent and capable. That is the only possible answer here.
Yeah, I will say I think they're taking a risk on it because I'm pretty sure, because I watched that interview live, and I'm pretty sure that interview was actually unedited. Like, I don't think it was actually live. I think it was recorded like an hour or two beforehand, and then it premiered on ABC, and it was actually unedited. And because of that, Biden actually did not look very good on the interview. Exactly.
But what Whipple wrote, Stephanopoulos questioned the president gently.
Oh, he
like
definitely,
a grandson.
Well, yeah, he was pretty gentle. And then, because I remember this interview, and but on the interview, that's where, you know, Biden was like saying that basically only God could stop him from dropping out. And so he kept like reassuring him, not dropping out, not dropping out, not dropping out. And I want to say it was like 2 weeks later, he's out of the race.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and then also right after that interview, you get people asking George Stephanopoulos, like on the streets. They ran up to George and they asked him like, "Hey, what do you think about Biden?" He said, "I think Biden should drop out."
Yeah.
And then he had to go back and like retract that and apologize.
Wait, he did. And look at this caveat. Ready for this caveat? This is insane to me. I don't think he can serve 4 more years, Stephanopoulos responded. A spokesperson for ABC News told Fox News Digital at the time that Stephanopoulos was expressing his own point of view and not the position of ABC News.
Yep. Yeah, his personal belief.
So the entire apparatus of ABC News is admitting we are propaganda. We are here to back Joe Biden's presidency. And the fact that Stephanopoulos said that goes against our like they're saying that's not our point of view. Are you fucking nuts?
Yeah. Because, and I think he was just telling the truth there. And I think ultimately ABC knew that too, but they can't necessarily go up as a whole news network against Joe Biden.
No, they shouldn't be going in front. Why do I need a caveat? No shit. The guy said, Stephanopoulos said he thinks he can't. Do I need a caveat that as no. That's not all of ABC's opinion?
No.
No, you don't. You're just hedging your bet on the off chance that Democrats stay in power and you want to have been there to support them.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like that was kind of the whole point of the interview, to either get him to drop out or to reassure the country. And it didn't get him to initially drop out, and it didn't reassure the country. And that's why the transition to Kamala Harris was even as bad as it was.
Exactly. It just, yeah.
So, unfortunately, I don't know if there's ever going to be an election as entertaining as this past one, because it was pretty entertaining.
Oh, it was fantastic.
I had a great time last year watching it. But towards the end, I was like ready just for it to be over. But man, it was a pretty good ride.
Yeah.
It, I don't know, definitely something that you feel like would be a movie.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, come on. You had the assassination attempt. You had him rising up with his fist in power. You had the multiple impeachment. I mean, seriously, if I really want, who's the guy that makes Michael Bay?
Michael Bay.
He's my pick.
A sweet movie.
I want Michael Bay to make a movie about the last 10 years of Donald Trump. And
people would think the Transformers movies were more realistic.
That's right. All right, let me see. I think I've covered all the stuff that I wanted to cover, right? Legitimacy of the courts, propaganda against tariffs, Jamie Dimon's dumbass, Joe Stephanopoulos, Anna Cabrera, CNN, yeah, all that. So I've covered all my stuff.
Yeah. And I think probably what I'll do is that I might post this as a full video, and then I think I'd also just cut up like there are certain segments and also post that as their own standalone video, so that way if somebody's just wanting to, I don't know, not be so lost in a 2-hour video.
Yeah. Do we go 2 hours?
Probably.
Yeah.
Close?
No, I think it's like an hour. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Time
that's
flies,
not bad,
baby.
That's not too bad, actually.
Yeah,
I thought we were probably closer to a couple hours. So
no, and personally, I mean, I don't know. Comment below. Oh, hey, hit like, subscribe, and comment. Aren't we supposed to start doing that stuff? Well, we should start that video out here. Ready? And I'm going to give you a clip. You can cut this and put it on the front. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And just, my favorite comments are the ones that attack us. Those are wildly entertaining.
Well, like, that's why I really appreciate, like, when I post something, TikTok's the best one to post on. Like, Instagram's, like, a little more tricky, but, like, TikTok is actually pretty solid on reach. They don't really, like, filter content out. And, like, I appreciate when I post on TikTok and we get a lot of comments that disagree because, like, that's exactly, like, what's helping us get, like, more reach.
Yeah.
And so if anybody's watching this long-form podcast, I assume people who are actually listening to a long-form podcast aren't going to disagree as much. But if you do disagree, we'll gladly take the comments.
Yeah. Light us up. And click like, subscribe, and follow.
Yeah.
And and personally, like I reference, and I reference this time, both Snurdly and Rush's stack of stuff, and those are two Rush Limbaugh comments. But one of the things I loved is he had this stack of stuff. He'd go for 3 hours every day. And he was the number one most listened to radio talk show host in history, as far as I know. I think Howard Stern gave him a little bit of a run for the money at some point. But I loved it. Like, I knew for 3 hours there was like a variety of topics that were going to be covered. It was just all the kind of news of the day and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was always, and he always brought perspective that you couldn't find anywhere else. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Let us know if you like short 20-minute videos. Let us know if you like 2 hours. And one thing I always do is I just always go move the speed to 1.5.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, 1.5 to 2, depending on how fast the people are talking in the video.
Yeah.
If they're already talking fast, I'll do 1.5.
Yeah.
But if they're really talking slow, it's at least 2.
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to go at 2 and retain anything. So
I will say there are sometimes I'll put it at 2 and I'll be listening for like 5-10 minutes. I'll be like, at this point, I don't even know what the hell we're talking about.
yes. So I'm 1.75 is my max.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's a good point.
1.5 is comfortable. I'm really at 1.75. I got to really be focusing in.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you guys, this is Elliot.
Nathaniel.
Until next week.
Signing off.